Every now and then we did use those worms to catch fish in the river. And down there on the bottom is their father with his cow. They had cattle too, and they lived a pretty good life. Next. This is a picture that was in the library that nobody knew who it was. The Hodges knew who it was. It was taken in the 30s. On the right here is Bessie, and on the left is her mother, Edna. You also see their Model T there.
It's a Model A.
Model A, I knew it. I knew you'd get me. It's a Model A. They used to be able to drive it up to the main road. They'd have to park it there, and then they could go to a basketball game, etc. on a school bus. And they also used it to bring watermelons and that down to the river banks to sell to the people who came up and down the banks. There's a picture in probably the middle 1970s of the house, the way it looked. It was starting to get overgrown.
We hauled a lot of watermelons in the back of that.
I believe
It
it.
didn't have a rumble
I'll bet
seal.
it was
had a
really
trunk
seedy.
lid.
I got special permission from Duke Energy for the Hodge children to come back. On the left you have Joe Clark, my wife, and then you've got Bessie, myself, Wilfred, and Shirley. We had a problem with Wilfred. Wilfred made up his mind he was going to get across that ditch and get over to the property. I left my wife behind to watch him because he was a little bit unsure. Well, she lost control when he got over there anyway. These are two big trees that are down there. The left is a beautiful big sycamore. The one on the right is a pine-type tree. It's a famous tree that the barges used to navigate with to get around. You can see it split down, a big hunk of it's on the right. This tree had a 5-foot diameter. Very old trees. They told me that here's some more information from them. I think it's very important to gather the information from people to learn how they lived and what they went through. They used to do their homework on the floor. The floor was very cold. They had a lantern. That's how they did their homework. That's it. They got 2 loads of coal a year if they could afford it, and they used wood. There is the remains of a small pond behind that house area, and over the last 3 years I've never seen it empty. There's got to be a spring underneath. I found some pottery sherds near it, and I tried to go out in maybe a foot or two to see if there was anything down in that area, because I wouldn't find many, but that's as far as I went because I didn't know what was below. The Hodges said that the dumbwaiter was still there when they were there. One of their fun times was when barges would come through, they would use flashlights to flashlight back and forth to the barges. On this page, it's just talking about the 12 to 15 graves that were there. I asked about broken sherds and that, because I couldn't find any there, which I'll go over in a minute. Just amazing. This is the same Wilfred document that we looked at before, talking about the road and how they had their cows and pigs in pens down there. I actually did find some big bones. I don't know if they're, I assume they're cow bones, I don't know. But there's still some of those down there where that was at. So we learned a lot from the Hodge family. We learned how they lived. We got a good idea of where the actual ferry was, the 405 road, and how they lived down there. The interviews were extremely valuable to me. We then go on to the last private owners of the landing area. That's the Mullins family. We had a lot going on at that time. They owned it from 64 to 73. Like I said, they had 3 tenant farmers in there. Farmers in the area decided to sell their land to Cincinnati Gas and Electric. The Mullins were the last holdout, the very last. Mary Mullins told me that they approached them at 8 o'clock on January 1st, 1973, and the document proves that's what happened. These farmers had to decide whether to take up the money and give up their way of life or keep their way of life. And they basically decided to give it up. They were offered things they just couldn't turn down. Here's one of the shots from the Mullins family. You see the hay barn there and other miscellaneous buildings, and how big the river really looks and how easy it would be to really flood over. The family actually loved it down there. They had 10 farmers there, but they would go down and stay on the banks in that for a few days. He was very proud of that blue silo, as he called it, on the upper left there. I found a cement platform. It must have been 80 feet long and about 15 feet wide, and I couldn't figure out what it was for. Well, down here it answered it. He actually had an auger that pushed the food out to the cattle. So at that point, he was going into it really big time. And speaking to the Hodge family again, they told me that Mr. Hodge, at his age, just didn't feel he could take care of that many more cattle. So that's when they actually left the area and the Mullins took care of it. Next is a copy of the option agreement. The Mullins family says they really didn't understand that this would end up in selling the property. They thought it was an offer that they would hold the property and then they could decide whether they wanted to sell it or not. But if you look at the bottom, it clearly says, at any time prior to such optionee shall give notice to the optioner that optionee is then exercising its right of purchase, then this option shall be deemed a contract for the purchase and sale of the above property. They swear to this day they did not know that's what was going to happen. I don't know. Yes. It did cause a big furor. Thanks. Judge Ferguson tried to help him out and get it placed on the National Register of Historical Places. That was in July of 1974. There's documentation that says that it was one of the finest river homes on the whole Ohio River. We're now getting a few of the ads, or not ads, a few of the newspaper clippings from the time that all this went on. Just massive fights. Ask in the CG&E case we dropped. Go ahead. I snuck this in there. This is a scale drawing of the house and showing where the debris was. Here's that fence I talked about. And over here there was a lot of metal, and right over here. Basically, you had a lot of heavy brick in this area. Over here, you had a lot of metal here and here. Pottery, I found just a few back here. And it made no sense. I found 50 times that amount at Jacob Piatt. And I searched for almost 3 years trying to find it. And then, here again, I was speaking to the Hodges, and one of them told me that they threw it out in the front of the house towards the river. And then the other night, I was speaking to him again, and one of them remembered a big ditch being there. That's a ditch. You will also find at that place where there was a house there that the Mullins actually made into a little summer home. They had a stove, refrigerator, running water. They came with a bulldozer and just pushed them right into it. So that whole area, right in there where I was going to find stuff, has dirt all on top of it. You're working in an area that's maybe 5 feet across and 6 foot deep. not the best area to try and work in. I did find glass, etc., like a third of the way down. I'll have to try and see if there's anything I can do in that area early spring before the weeds set in. That's what I found there in about 5 minutes. Very tough. Here's just a couple other pictures of the property. And there's that big tree that I told you they used to guide the boats. Here's the pottery I found. Ridiculous. There has to be more. People are interested in the different styles of pottery and that to try and age it. And that's all I was able to find. That's just a close-up of a couple pieces of it. Found a couple horseshoes. Bruce, is that some type of plow shear down there?
It looks like it.
Yeah, I had a date on it, 1888. You can see different types of horseshoes there. Found an iron, an axe, part of a pull lever piece for a cast iron furnace. I don't know. I haven't seen the top of the lightning rod. I guess it could be. I'm not sure. It is copper. So we have all this land being transferred. I looked at the map and I said, gee, let's see what we can find out about the wards. Over on the other side of those trees, about 200 yards, is the Piatt house. I finally did find a few bricks there, and then did find some real interesting pieces next. The top is a military button. The information was still on the back, and I looked it up, found out who it was made by and what period of time they made those. And then there was a fancy stamp, Buckley, marked 1828 on the bottom. And there's a close-up of it. That was a nice find. It helps date things. Next. Here there was some copper and brass parts of kettles and that I found there. So I knew I'd started getting into something old. Next. And here we get into the bulldozing of the property. Robert Piatt turned the wilderness area into a fantastic home for his family. He raised and sold corn, livestock, and vegetables for people up and down the river. He opened a ferry, a road. What have we done to honor this family? Not much. Jim Mullins was the last owner. The person who was involved in this, I've talked to people locally, I've also found it in the paper. Mr. Snyder was now passed, was a very powerful man in the area, very influential. He had a slight conflict of interest. He was a congressman with power, he had coal interests, and he represented CG&E as a real estate person to purchase all the land down here. Slight conflict of interest. So starting in 1973, the property was without regular tenant farmers. Vandals came in, the place, basically everything was taken. I even heard stories where people thought there were treasures buried there. Well, I don't know any tenant farmer would have a treasure buried there, that's for sure. So the place was vandalized. CG&E had many offers that they were going to do. First, they were going to let them have 2 acres of land to save the house. They backed out on that. Then they were going to let them save the graveyard. They didn't do that. They were going to put up a fence around it, but they didn't do that for 6 months, and the place was, like I said, raped from one end to the other.